Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94, here back with another reaction video. Today, we're finna react to top 10 most comfortable Air Jordan retro sneakers of all time. So these are the most comfortable, not the best looking, not the best silhouette, but the most comfortable, the ones that feel good on your feet. Off rip, it's gotta be the threes, the tens, the sixes, um the 13s and the 12s for sure. The 13s and the 12s really do feel comfortable on your feet. But we gonna see though. Without further ado, man, let's get right into it.
These are the first Air Jordan sneakers from 1 to 14. Out of all the silhouettes that Jordan Brand has ever made, the 1 through 14 are by far the most popular. And I've worn all of these silhouettes a bunch, in a bunch of different colorways, but I've never sat down and tried to figure out which one is the most comfortable. And to be honest, I've always wondered, so today, we're gonna figure it out. This is the top 10 most comfortable Air Jordan retros. Yes, I know there's 14 of them, but we're gonna have 4 different honorable mentions. Starting things off with the 4th honorable mention, and unfortunately, the least comfortable shoe on today's list, we've got my favorite sneaker of all time, the Air Jordan 1. So I guess it stands to reason that the Air Jordan 1 is the least comfortable shoe on the list. It was the first shoe to release back in 1985, and it features the least amount of cushioning technology. That said though, from a personal point of view, I've worn
Without question, this is the worst shoe to put on your feet. Like I say, I will never sit up here and say that the Air Force, the Air Jordan 1 is probably the most beautiful Jordan out of all of them. If I had to say the one that's like the best looking one, the one wins by default. The one wins by default. Any colorway you put it with, it's gonna hit. Any colorway you put it with, it's gonna hit. Any type of variation of the shoe that you do with it, it's gonna hit. But the problem with them is they're just not comfortable. There's no cushioning in this at all. The fact that they still trying to keep it in the original instead of just updating the cushion in the shoe. All they have to do is update the cushion in the shoe. I don't know why Nike don't do that. It's not the 80s anymore. You've evolved with technology. So just put cushioning in the shoe. We don't need the retro feel of the shoe. Nobody likes the feel of the shoe. The shoe is terrible. Just put cushioning in it. If they put cushioning in the Air Jordan 1, best shoe of all time, hands down. But if you're never going, no, put cushioning in this damn shoe, bro. For real, dog. It's not that hard to do. You could put some memory foam in this fucking shoe. That's all you got to do. Put some memory foam in this fucking shoe, and this shoe skyrockets.
the Jordan 1 so much, I'm just used to it. I think it feels great on foot, especially after you've worn the shoe for a couple times. But I do understand from a purely objective point of view how this shoe could be considered the least comfortable. I mean, all you've really got for comfort is a very thin Zoom Air unit in the heel of the shoe, which I've never even noticed personally. But I actually think it's better than a pair of Vans, and people wear Vans all the time, so I really don't understand the hate on this shoe in terms of comfort. I think it's just fine. The upper of the shoe is reasonable. It comes in a lot of cases leather, which feels fine on foot and does break in over time. Depending on the kind of leather that you get, some leathers are very stiff, usually the better leathers, and some leathers are very soft and flimsy, usually the worst leathers. In the case of the Chicago Lost and Founds, the upper is fine. It's really nicely padded around the ankle area. The toe box is leather, with not really any padding going on there, so if you don't mind the way that feels on your foot, you're gonna be fine with this shoe. I think the best word to use when describing the comfort of the Air Jordan 1s is basic. I mean, that's really what it is. It's the first Air Jordan model, the first time that Jordan Brand ever put an Air unit in a pair of Air Jordans, obviously because it is the first Air Jordan. That's why they called it Air Jordan, because it had an Air unit in it. And I hate to say it, but compared to the other Jordans on this list, it is probably the least comfortable, objectively. But again, I would wear this over every shoe on the list because I love the Jordan 1. The third honorable mention and the second least comfortable shoe on today's list is the Air Jordan.
Cap. Big cap. Big cap. Big cap. Big fucking cap.
Down to the lawn.
Big fucking cap right here. Big fucking cap right here. List already invalid. Big fucking cap.
Hell no. Trash ass nigga.
Big fucking cap.
Jordan 6. So I wore all 14 of these shoes, basically 14 days in a row, to determine which one was the most comfortable. And
this shit is comfortable as fuck, especially in the back part of the heel, bro. The back part of the heel, the upper on the ankle, bro. Everything about this shoe is comfort, bro. What are you talking about? So much cushion, there's so much cushion in this shoe. There's no fucking way. Every pair I've ever had of this shoe, always been comfort.
And then on the last day, I kind of compared all of them by trying them on side by side, one on one foot, one on the other foot. It was a whole big process. And to my surprise, the Air Jordan 6, the sixth Air Jordan sneaker, there were 5 more before this shoe, was the second least comfortable shoe. You'd think after 5 versions of the Air Jordan shoe that the 6 would be higher on the list, but in my opinion, it's not that comfortable. The main cushion on this shoe is a visible air unit that you can see in the heel. However, it's surrounded by this really stiff rubber that does not allow it to compress that much. And then when you move forward to the front of the shoe, it's just really stiff underfoot, like genuinely pretty similar to the Air Jordan 1s in my opinion. Now to be fair, everyone's feet are different. I'm gonna be saying this a lot throughout the video, so everyone might have different thoughts and opinions when it comes to comfortable Jordan retros, but in my opinion, this is the second worst. And then when you pair that with rubber that's relatively stiff and doesn't move that well with your foot, it's not that comfortable of an experience. I will say that it is one of the more well-ventilated Air Jordan models. I mean, you can tell from all the ventilation holes on the side of the shoe, which actually don't do as much as you would think, but to be honest, none of the shoes on this list are really that well ventilated, so it's kind of just the best of a bad situation. Does it look good though? Yes, I do like the way the sneaker looks, and yes, I do wear the Air Jordan 6 a decent amount, even though this is actually the only pair that I have in my size currently. It's also the only non-OG colorway that I have in today's video because I literally don't have any other Air Jordan 6 colorways, but it's a good shoe. It's just not that comfortable. The second honorable mention and the third least comfortable pair of Air Jordan sneakers, in my opinion,
why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god, stop fucking lying.
Hear me and hear me good, nigga. I'm here to double down. That shit is a 2-pack of ass. The fuck are you talking about? That shit stinks.
What kind of shit is that?
Ain't no fucking way. You just said the most comfortable with so much cushioning on the ankle, on the feet. No, absolutely not. This is big cap right here. Big fucking cap right here. You said the Air Jordan 3, the 3s? Alright, bro. This list is invalid as fuck already.
Is the Air Jordan 3. Now, this was really tough for me because I wear this shoe all the time. In my opinion, it's a pretty comfortable shoe. And when I did research regarding which shoe was the most comfortable before I actually wore all of them, this was pretty consistently considered the most comfortable on Reddit message boards, on Twitter, all across the internet. But in my opinion, it's not as comfortable as people think. I mean, it should kind of make sense because it's one of the earlier Air Jordan models. There's not a huge amount going on tech-wise. You do have a visible air unit, which is the first time you actually had a visible air unit on a pair of Air Jordan sneakers. This is the Tinker Hatfield Special. It's probably my second favorite Air Jordan model of all time behind the Air Jordan 1s. But in terms of underfoot comfort, it's lacking. Yes, the Air Jordan 3 does feature a 4-foot air unit, but you don't feel it. Sure, the upper is relatively well padded, and you can wear this shoe all day. I mean, you can wear all these shoes all day, but it just isn't that soft underfoot. And I get it. A lot of you guys are gonna be mad in the comments. I totally understand. I would have thought that this shoe would have been higher on the list before I tried all of these sneakers, but after literally trying them all on for 14 days and then trying them side by side, this one just didn't make the cut. This is a shoe that I love personally. Please don't hate me for this, but I just don't think it's that comfortable compared to the other 11 shoes I'm about to talk about. Still think it's a great shoe though, and it's more comfortable than a pair of Vans, and the Jordan 1s, and the Jordan 6s. Then the final honorable mention that unfortunately did not make the list is the Air Jordan 4. Comfort-wise, this shoe is very similar to the Air Jordan.
I wouldn't know. I never had a pair of 4s, so I wouldn't know how the 4s feel.
Jordan 3s. In my opinion, the only reason this shoe edges out the Air Jordan 3s is because the upper is just a bit more padded. It also is a little bit more ventilated, however, the ventilation panels on the sides of the shoe and on the toe don't do as much as you would hope, but it is a slightly more comfortable shoe. When it comes to cushioning on the Air Jordan 4, you've got a visible air unit on the heel encased in foam, which is, it's kind of soft underfoot. You've also got a 4-foot air unit, which I'll be honest, I don't really feel. In my opinion, this shoe does offer a bit more arch support than the Air Jordan 3s, which I liked, and there's also more padding around the ankle area, so all around I'd say that this shoe is a bit more comfortable than the Air Jordan 3s, but it's still not that comfortable. It's crazy because my top 3 Jordan sneakers of all time did not make the actual list. This is number 3 on the list for me. It's the 1s, the 3s, and the 4s, and then we move on to some other sneakers, which we'll talk about later. But I really think when you stack it up against other Jordan retros, it does not make the cut, and that pains me to say, but unfortunately, the last honorable mention. But now let's move into the official top 10 list. And starting off the list at number 10 is the Air Jordan 5. The Air Jordan 5 is one of those models that goes in and out.
Bro, this is right behind the 3s as the second most comfortable shoe, bro. What? This is the second most comfortable shoe. Alright, good.
Out of popularity very, very quickly. Jordan Brand releases a bunch of them and then just stops releasing them, and you don't really know exactly when the next pair of Air Jordan 5s is coming out. And because of that, I don't think as many people have Air Jordan 5s as they have 4s or 3s. And while the underfoot cushioning setup of this shoe is pretty similar to the Air Jordan 4s and the Air Jordan 3s, which makes sense because those shoes released a year or two before this shoe, it's a little bit better on foot, and the upper of this shoe is significantly more comfortable than both of those shoes. Sure, the shoe features a 4-foot air unit like the Air Jordan 4 and the Air Jordan 3, but it's a little bit lower to the ground, so you don't really feel it. However, the upper of the shoe is incredibly well padded, especially around the ankle area. There is so much plug plush padding goodness going on. It just feels like a pillow on your foot, which I understand some people might not love, but I do think overall this shoe is a much more comfortable shoe than the 4s or the 3s. Okay, maybe much is an overstatement, but still, it is more comfortable than both of those shoes. Aesthetically, this shoe might not be as good looking as those shoes, and in my opinion, it's not one of my top 5 favorite Jordan models. Maybe it's the number 5 spot, I don't know. But still, a relatively comfortable on-foot experience, albeit not the most comfortable shoe in the world. And ventilation-wise, it's fine. A bit better than the 4s, but not exceptional. Number 9, the Air Jordan 8. The Air Jordan 8 is one of the more polarizing shoes on this list, and while it's a very well-loved and
Never had a pair of these, so I can't judge these because I never had a pair of 8s.
like Air Jordan Retro, I can understand why some people might not like the way the sneaker looks. The marquee feature of this shoe are the straps that wrap across the top of the laces, and in my opinion are somewhat unnecessary and also make the shoe a bit more difficult to get into. In fact, I'd say that this shoe is probably the most difficult to get into pair of Air Jordan sneakers out there, because I mean realistically you really have to undo the straps and then loosen the laces, and this whole process, especially when the shoe is brand new, can be a pain to get into, but once it breaks in, it gets better. I also forgot to mention that another thing that doesn't help getting into this shoe is the internal booty construction, which essentially means that there is basically a padded sock inside the shoe, which yes, feels good on your foot, but man, is it difficult to slide your foot in without pressing down part of it, whether it's the heel part or the tongue. You can just kind of step on the wrong thing and have some issues, but all around, still a pretty comfortable shoe. And to be honest, a lot of that does have to do with the internal booty construction. It's very well padded, it's very soft, it really hugs your foot nicely, especially when you lock down these straps. And when it comes to underfoot comfort, you've actually got two air units, one in the forefoot and one in the heel. And while they're not as soft as some of the other shoes we'll talk about in the list, obviously, because this shoe is nowhere near the top of the list, they are pretty comfortable underfoot. The main downside for me for this shoe, and the reason this shoe was lower on the list than I think it could have been, is the fact that this shoe is so incredibly hot on foot. The hottest shoe on the list, in my opinion, by far. Not only is there just a lot going on in the upper and not really any ventilation, you've got this internal booty ankle thing going on, which doesn't offer any kind of ventilation, and it's just a warm, hot shoe. And even wearing this shoe for like an hour, you get hot, and especially in the summer, man, it's a warm experience. So maybe not a summer shoe, but you know, other than that, it's pretty comfortable. I mean, really, the air units, fine underfoot. The padding, really nice on this shoe, but the heat is a problem. And while the design of this shoe is polarizing, you can't deny how iconic this sneaker is, especially in this playoff colorway. It's beautiful. The Bugs Bunnies are beautiful. A lot of really great looking pairs of Air Jordan 8s are out there, and there's a lot of good options when it comes to grabbing this shoe. So don't write this shoe off just because you might not love the paneling on the upper of this shoe. Definitely worth trying out. Number 8, the Air Jordan 9. In my opinion, the Air Jordan 9 is a great looking silhouette. It's one of those shoes that you can throw on.
I'll say this is the third most comfortable shoe. I'd probably say this is third. Yeah, I give it third. It's well padded.
And it looks crispy. I don't know if crispy is the right way to describe the Air Jordan 9, but that's just what I thought of. That was the first word that came to my head. The upper of this shoe is pretty well padded. Ventilation is fine. You really only get ventilation through the tongue of the sneaker. These ventilation holes on the side of the shoe are basically pinpricks and do nothing. Depending on the version of the Air Jordan 9 that you get in the colorway, the leather is decent. You've got some nubuck, or I guess Durabuck material that's used on the mudguard of the shoe. But the main reason this shoe made the top 10 list is because of the underfoot cushioning setup. You've got a Zoom Air unit in the heel and a Zoom Air unit in the forefoot. And while it's not as soft underfoot as some of the other shoes that we'll talk about later on in the list, it is pretty decent, and it's all around a pretty comfortable experience. Like the Air Jordan 8s and some of the other Air Jordans that we'll talk about later on in the list, this shoe features an internal booty construction, which is fine. It's actually easier to put on some of the other shoes on this list, mainly because the rest of the upper of the shoe is a bit more traditional. But I gotta be honest, the Air Jordan 9 is relatively unexceptional. It's not the best looking shoe on the list, it's definitely not the worst looking shoe on the list, it's not the most comfortable shoe on the list, it's definitely not the least comfortable shoe on the list. It's kind of right there in the middle, just living life, enjoying itself, and it's, you know, if you like the Air Jordan 9, you're probably gonna like this shoe. Still a dope retro, but in terms of Jordan retros, it's just kind of middle of the road. Coming in very fittingly at number 7 is the Air Jordan 7. Even though in a lot of ways the Air Jordan 7 is pretty similar to the Air Jordan 6, it's actually a significantly more
Never had a pair of 7s.
comfortable on-foot experience. And the main reason for that is that this shoe features an almost full-length Zoom Air unit. It is called the full-length Air Zoom unit, but it's not as full-length as some other Jordan models. Like the Air Jordan 6, the Air Jordan 7 features some ventilation holes in the upper, which do give this shoe some pretty decent ventilation, better than most of the shoes on the list. And this internal booty construction that kind of hugs your foot is actually really comfortable on foot. I will say though that this shoe is pretty difficult to put on. Not as hard to put on as the Air Jordan 8s, but it's definitely not the easiest experience. At least not the first few times that you put the shoe on when it's new. The more that you wear this shoe, the more broken in it gets, the easier it is to put on, but initially it can be a problem. Material-wise, the shoe is fine. It obviously varies depending on which colorway that you're getting. This is the Cardinal colorway, which you can actually get for under retail currently, and if you want to grab this shoe or any of the other shoes on the list, I made sure to leave affiliate links through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen and also in the top of the description below. But in 2024, an incredibly underrated sneaker that not only looks good, but also feels really good on foot, and if you haven't tried the Air Jordan 7, this is a great colorway to go for. It's just clean. It's just a really, really clean silhouette. I love this shoe. And when you pair this sort of soft booty-like construction in the upper of the shoe with this full-length Zoom unit in the midsole, it's pretty soft on foot. It's a very, very comfortable experience. Number 6, the Air Jordan 2. Bet you guys didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming. In fact, until I compared this shoe to other shoes, I didn't even believe that this shoe was as comfortable. I really
Never had a pair of these. Never had a pair of these. And I never will get a pair of these. These are by far some of the most ugliest shoes I think I've ever seen in my life. I would never rock these ever. They just don't appeal to me at all.
had this shoe like at the bottom of the list with the Air Jordan 1s, but genuinely, this shoe is nice on foot. Tech spec wise, this shoe is nothing special. This shoe released a year after the Air Jordan 1, so it's not that different from the Jordan 1s. However, this shoe does feature a larger air unit in the heel of this shoe. The midsole is a little bit softer underfoot, and the upper of this shoe is crazy padded. I mean, it's like you got pillows on your ankles. It's ridiculous. Plus, ventilation wise, this shoe is a little bit better than the Air Jordan 1s. Not a lot, but a little bit. This is the kind of shoe that I'd recommend to someone who's looking for a good, firm underfoot feel. Yes, it's firmer than some of the shoes we've talked about on the list, but it's actually more comfortable than those shoes, mainly because it's a little bit wider. You've got a bit more room. The air unit is soft, but not too soft. Like you can notice it, but you can't notice it that well. If you like court feel and you like a firm ride, but you still want a comfortable experience, this is a good way to go. It's a shoe that honestly doesn't make a lot of sense when it comes to comfort. Like I don't understand why I think this shoe is so comfortable, but I do, and that's why it's number 6 on the list. I definitely recommend trying out a pair of Air Jordan 2s if you haven't yet. They're a great model. There's a bunch of Air Jordan 2s on the market right now. I love them. I think it's a great shoe. Will everyone agree with the placement of this shoe on the list? Absolutely not, but I really do think that this shoe is deserving of the number 6 spot. But hey, if you already have some pairs of Air Jordan 2s and you're thinking, that shoe sucks on foot, I really don't like the way it feels, well, you can enhance the way that it feels by adding a pair of Apothecary socks. I'm sure by now you know this, but Apothecary is a sock brand that I co-founded with a good friend of mine from college. We make the best socks out there. They're incredibly soft on foot, very well ventilated because of our ISOweave technology. And not only do Apothecary socks come in a ton of different colors, I could keep it. Check us out, apothecary.com. Number 5, the Air Jordan 10. The Air Jordan 10s are one of those Jordan models that really don't get a lot of love. This is a 9. I mean, maybe more than the 14s, but still, it's not one of the
very well cushioned. There's a lot of cushion in this shoe. From the upper to the bottom, it's a lot of cushion, bro. Only bad thing about these shoes, they crease real easily. They can crease really badly. I'm not just talking about on the toe area, as you can see right here. It's creasing on the side. Like, yeah, these shoes have a tendency. These shoes have a high tendency to crease on the sides, on the toe. It can get it. Yeah, that's the only problem. Durability on these shoes are not the best, but still comfortable ass shoe and a good looking ass shoe on top of that as well. There's just the durability factor with the shoe.
The most popular Air Jordan models, but I do think it's actually one of the more comfortable Air Jordan models. In fact, the 5th most comfortable Air Jordan model. The shoe usually comes in a leather upper with a full-length Phylon midsole and a full-length air unit. Now, there are other shoes on the list with a full-length air unit. However, this air unit doesn't feel as soft underfoot as some of the shoes we'll talk about later on in the list, so that's why this shoe is not higher on the list, but it is a pretty comfortable sneaker underfoot. It's a decent on-court performance shoe. Ventilation is reasonable, I guess. And stylistically, it's really clean. What's interesting is that when you compare the shoe to an Air Jordan 11, you can really see where some of the design cues from the 11 came from on the 10. The ankle area is well padded, the tongue is pretty well padded. It's an all-around solid shoe. Plus, if you forget some of Jordan's accolades, you can look at the outsole of the shoe and you've got all of them right there for you, or most of them. All the ones up to the Air Jordan 10. This is actually a shoe that I like a lot, and I wish I had more pairs of 10s in my collection, but there haven't been a lot of 10 releases in a while. So if you want a pair of these, you might have to go into the archives, hit up GOAT, hit up StockX, grab a pair from a couple years ago, but I would love to see these shoes come back in full force and we get a bunch of Air Jordan 10 colorways. Now we get to one of the most controversial picks on this list, number 4, the Air Jordan 11.
Terrible.
Yes, I understand that a lot of people think that this is not that.
Bottom 5, terrible. Not even bottom 5. These would be right next to the. Yeah, these would be right next to the ones. These would be right next to the ones for terrible comfort shoe. Terrible, and it's only because of the middle part right here. This part is so fucking hard. Pause. No diddy. But this part is so fucking hard, bro. It just fucks my big toe up every time, bro. Cause this part right here is so hard. It's unforgiving, bro. It really like it really can like just have your foot just sore. Which is why I don't wear my 11s like I want to. Like I would love to wear my 11s to work, but I can't because these shits hurt. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful shoe. It's a beautiful shoe. It's an iconic shoe. But this middle part right here, the more you let it rub up on your feet, the more sore your feet get and the more pain you feel.
That comfortable of a shoe, but I beg to differ. Not only is the Air Jordan 11 one of the most popular Air Jordan sneakers of all time because it looks amazing, but also because it performs well on court. And a shoe can't perform well on court if it's not comfortable. You can't wear it. The Air Jordan 11 not only features a full-length Phylon midsole, but also a full-length Zoom Air unit. This full-length Air unit, or almost full-length Air unit, it's called a full-length Air unit, but it doesn't actually go the entire length of the shoe. It goes from like here to here. Feels pretty nice underfoot, and there's really not a lot of other Jordan retros that have that. Sure, I've seen people online complain about the patent leather on this shoe and how it constricts their toes, but this shoe wasn't designed to be a lifestyle sneaker. Actually, none of these shoes were. This shoe was designed to be an on-court performance shoe shoe, and this patent leather offers a lot of containment. But hey, that's not what this video is about. This video is purely about comfort, and this shoe is much more comfortable than people give it credit for. That full-length Air Zoom unit feels incredible underfoot. Sure, the patent leather might be a little bit stiffer than some people would like, but when you pair it to some kind of soft mesh, like the ballistic nylon used in the upper of this shoe, or even the suede used in that really awful tan colorway, this shoe is pretty comfortable. Not only that, the upper of the shoe is pretty well padded, but not overly padded. It's like a very, very soft padding, so your foot really has a lot of room to play and move in this shoe, which I like a lot. Ventilation-wise, this shoe isn't great, but really what Jordan Retro is, and coming back to the patent leather on this shoe, if you really don't like how your toes kind of come together in the front of the shoe, which I don't have a problem with, but some people do, maybe go up half a size. But if you think that the Jordan 11 is one of the least comfortable Jordan Retros out there, you really gotta try.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to go up a size if you're gonna wear some Jordan 11s. Most definitely gonna have to go up a size. So like if you wear a 12, you're gonna have to get a 13. If you wear a 13, you're gonna have to get a 14. Sadly. Cause these shits hurt. That patent leather just it just leave your feet sore, dog. It really do.
Try it on compared to some other Jordan Retros. I don't think you understand how comfortable this shoe is until you compare it to some other shoes. So yes, possibly a controversial pick, but I stand by my decision. I think this shoe is very comfortable on foot. Number 3, the Air Jordan 13.
Most
Weirdly enough,
definitely.
when I was doing research for this video, the two shoes that consistently came up as the most comfortable pairs of Jordan Retros on Reddit boards and Twitter and places like that were the Air Jordan 3s and the Air Jordan 13s. And I don't know why the 3s were even in the conversation. I mean, if you want a pair of 3s next to a pair of Air Jordan 13s, they don't feel the same. All that said, the Air Jordan 13 is an incredibly comfortable shoe on foot. The upper of this shoe is very, very well padded. The tongue is super well padded. The ventilation is none, basically. I mean, you really, really get hot in this shoe, but it's not as bad as another shoe, which we'll talk about later on in the list. But where the shoe shines is the underfoot comfort. The Air Jordan 13 features both a heel Air Zoom unit and a forefoot Air Zoom unit, which feels incredible underfoot. Well, incredible compared to the other Jordans on the list. I mean, there's a million other shoes out there nowadays that are much more comfortable, but comparatively, this whole video is comparative. The materials on this shoe are decent. They're nothing exceptional, but they're fine. On this playoff colorway, you've got tumbled leather on the toe and on these panels on the sides of the shoe. You've got suede on the midsole and towards the heel of the sneaker. And while aesthetically the Air Jordan 13 is definitely not one of my favorite Air Jordan models, it is still an iconic sneaker. It's still got a lot of history behind it, and it's one of the most comfortable Jordan Retros out there. Plus, you got that little jewel towards the heel that kind of fogs up over time. That's a cool touch. Number 2, the Air Jordan 14. The top 3 shoes on this list are somewhat interchangeable in my opinion. There are things I like about each one.
I only had these shoes when they first came out, and I was like, I want to say 4 years old at the time when these came out, and I had like 4 pair of these, so I can't really speak on the comfortability of them because one, I was a kid, so and I was like 4 years old, and that's a long time ago, so I can't really speak on it.
And things that I don't like about each one. But the Air Jordan 14, in my opinion, is one of the most comfortable Jordans of all time. I'm talking modern Jordans, I'm talking retro Jordans. This shoe is an incredibly comfortable on-foot experience. Unfortunately though, a lot of people don't get to experience that because the Air Jordan 14 is one of the least popular Air Jordan retros. And I guess I can understand why. I mean, visually, it's not the prettiest Air Jordan model. It looks like a racing shoe, and I don't think a lot of Jordan heads are into that. You've got the Ferrari-inspired Jumpman.
This shit is fire. The white, like I said before, I'll say it again. White with the color at the bottom, perfect. Black with the color at the bottom, it looks terrible.
And logo on the side of the shoe. You've got a very driving shoe aesthetic. I mean, there's even a Ferrari model of the sneaker, or a Ferrari colorway of this shoe, so it's obviously inspired by motorsports, and if you're not into that, you probably are not going to love the way the shoe looks. I personally don't hate it. I think it's fine. I like rocking this shoe, but it's definitely not my favorite Air Jordan Retro visually. However, when it comes to comfort, this shoe is incredibly comfortable on foot, and one of the main reasons for that is because this shoe is deceivingly light. This shoe looks like it could be a heavier Air Jordan model, but it's crazy light in hand. Not only that, this sort of mid-low cut situation that you've got going on also feels great on foot. The ankle area on this shoe is incredibly well padded. It's surprisingly breathable for what it is. I mean, it's still an Air Jordan Retro, so it's not gonna blow your socks off, but it is somewhat breathable, especially with this little car-inspired air scoop detail on the medial side of the shoe. It actually does let in a decent amount of air. Underfoot, the shoe features a heel Air Zoom unit and a forefoot Air Zoom unit, which gives you some nice bounce and some nice cushion when you're walking in the shoe or playing basketball in this shoe. If I was to play basketball in any of these models, I probably would play in the Air Jordan 14, not just because it's the most modern, but also because I just like the way it feels on foot all around. And the materials used on this shoe are pretty decent. You've got a nice tumbled leather in the midfoot, you've got a more standard leather towards the toe. It's a pretty premium feeling shoe. And like I said, it's number 2 on the list because it's really, really comfortable. You'll understand when I get to the number 1 shoe on the list, but if there was a pair of Jordans from this list that I would throw on every day purely for comfort and not for visuals, this would be the shoe. No, it's not the most comfortable underfoot comparatively, especially not compared to the next shoe, but for me, it's the all-around comfort package that makes this shoe one of the most comfortable shoes on the list, and probably the shoe that I'd rock every day. Coming in at number 1, you probably could have figured it out from a process of elimination, the Air Jordan 12. In my opinion, there's not one shoe on the list that comes close to the underfoot comfort of the Air Jordan 12. This shoe features full-length Air Zoom, which feels absolutely amazing underfoot. It is by far the softest and bounciest Air Jordan Retro sneaker. It doesn't look like the shoe would be
comfort all around from this, from like right here in this area, comfort. The toe, perfectly fine. The cushioning at the bottom, perfect. And the back part, hey, feels like a dream. Feels like a dream. Definitely a goated Jordan shoe for comfortability. A little heavy though. It's a little heavy. It's a little heavy. It's a little on the heavy side, but still comfortable. Very comfortable shoe.
Be that comfortable on foot. I mean, it looks like a boot. It also kind of feels like a boot on the upper of your shoe in terms of like stiffness, but underfoot comfort, this shoe is unmatched. And out of almost all the shoes on the list, this is one of the only ones that I didn't pull off my feet and go, like I pulled it off and I was like, okay, back to normal, I guess, but that was comfortable. I'm not sure exactly why they didn't put a full Zoom Air unit in the Air Jordan 13's midsole and the Air Jordan 14's midsole. I'm sure there's a bunch of reasons why. I'm not sure what those reasons are, but I wish they had. In fact, if you pair this underfoot cushion with another shoe on the list, like the 14's or the 13's, that shoe would by far be number one on the list. Unfortunately, the upper on this shoe is very, very stiff and is also not breathable whatsoever. I really struggled with whether I should put this shoe at number one on the list or the 13s or the 14s because both of those shoes have a more comfortable upper. However, the midsole on this shoe is just that much better, and so that's why this shoe is in the number one spot. However, if you rock this shoe, keep in mind, it is gonna get hot. It is kind of stiff. It does feel a little heavy and like a boot on your foot, but man, that cushion is nice. And while I'm not in love with the way that the upper of the shoe feels, the materials used on this upper, this full grain leather, looks really nice. It's pretty high quality, and there is a decent amount of padding around the ankle area. So even though it's hot, it's not an uncomfortable experience. So here it is, the Air Jordan 12, the most comfortable Air Jordan retro sneaker between the 1s and the 14s. At this point in the video, I would love to know your thoughts on this list and whether you agree or whether you disagree.
Very invalid list. But anyways, though, I just go about do it for this one. Most definitely, the 3 should be number one by far. The 3 should definitely be number one by far. Not even up for debate, but I digress. Most definitely. The 12s definitely feel great on feet. The 12s will forever feel great on feet. A lot of cushioning, good padding. Yeah. Like I said, a little heavy, but as long as you ain't got no weak ankles, as long as you ain't got no Steph Curry ankles, you should be alright. You know what I'm saying? You should be alright. As long as you ain't got no Steph Curry ankles, then you should be alright. But anyway, so that's just gonna about do it for this one, man. I will see you all in the next video. Till then, peace out.